Hello and welcome back to the MLB DFS Slate breakdown for Tuesday, April 23rd. I had to think about it for a second, but we are back. We're going to be breaking down this slate. I think it's a pretty fun one. So we're going to start off by going over the perfect lineups yesterday, as well as the winning lineups. Then we will get into the starting pitchers, high-owned guys, some pivots to consider, and then followed by going over a few of the stacks. Now, before we get into it, please come join us at LineStar. $39.99 per month gets you access to everything we do, all the props, all the DFS. You get it all. As well, can you please like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube videos? Helps us a ton. Just to give you guys more of this content out for free. As the bigger reach we have, the more ability we have to give away content for free. Now, let's get into the slate. Let's get over to those perfect lineups. Yesterday was an interesting one. It started as just complete snooze fest. Not much happened. Colorado did not come through as it, was expected. And thus, perfect lineups a little bit weird. We got Chris Paddock, 6,300 as the pitcher. Of note, he pulled in 61. He just had an amazing game here. 7 innings, 10 Ks, no earned runs, 6 hits. They were actually getting to him, just kind of got a little lucky with being able to get out of everything when he did get into some danger. So congrats to Paddock. Great night for you. And then it was also a good night for the Twins. They put up a decent amount of runs there, but all in all, it was one of those slates where there wasn't necessarily one team that really pulled away, and thus the perfect lineup is all one-offs. It doesn't happen often, but it did yesterday. The winning lineup, however, still did have those stacks. We had Dylan Cease as the pitcher, and then a 2-man Baltimore stack, 4-man Minnesota stack, one off with KC and Padres. So, really nice lineup altogether. He was pretty contrarian. Cease was the chalky pitcher, but this twin stack got there. The guys were cheap. Kepler, 2,500. Kuroff, 29. 28 for Trevor Larnach. 2,600, I should say. And Eduardo Julian, 2,900 and only 10% owned. So they were cheap, they were contrarian, they put up 7 runs, and the White Sox are, a team we just want to pick on this year. Their bullpen's bad, their starting pitcher isn't great, or starting pitchers aren't great, so made some sense to go there. So congrats to MR Mr. Cease 13, if that is how you'd say it, but congrats to him. Nice work. And let's get over to the good old DraftKings. So, perfect lineup, Chris Paddock, Dylan Cease. Then we had a 2-man Blue Jays stack and all one-offs. Blue Jays were one of the stacks that I was kind of high on last night. I just didn't quite get there. Best lineup ended 35th for me last night. So, winning lineup went to Tom JK 321. He had Cease, he had Paddock. He had a 5-man Minnesota stack, 2-man Baltimore, and a one-off of Paul Goldschmidt. So once again, 2 days in a row, that 5-2-1 lineup construction got it done on DraftKings. Very, very good lineup construction that continually is winning. So let's get into the perfect lineups. Today's lineups and the pitchers. So, on DraftKings, the highest owned pitcher today, Max Fried, 24%. He's only 8K. Pitcher of his caliber, that cheap, is fairly interesting. LineStar projections liking him. It is a 8.5 point game total. And the Braves are giant favors. So definitely an interesting spot here. I like Fried. He has had a rough go to start the season, though. 5.73 FIP over his last 5 starts. 3 of his 4 starts have been rough. He did get to Miami in his one start in Miami. That was this one start that was good this season. But all in all, Fried is going to turn around. He is just going to be fine. 3.59 FIP over his last 20. I'd be leaning into more so his longer timeline stats here than his last 5. He will be fine. The one thing here that I do see troubling, or there's actually 2. One, he's averaging 61% less fantasy points when home. 2, his K rate, only 22%. Also, if you look at the opponent team splits, 20% K rate here versus lefties for Miami. So I don't totally love this spot. There is some upside for Fried, but he's going to have to be extremely efficient, work really deep into this game to really see that tournament winning upside. And that's my issue here. It is a good spot. Miami Marlins are not good at hitting the baseball. Fried is a good pitcher, but the strikeout upside is limited, and that is what we need here. Strikeouts score us the most fantasy points. So I don't mind Fried. I will have some of him, but I am not trying to go over crazy with him, especially if he is really the highest owned pitcher. Pablo Lopez is next, and he's in a very good spot. The Chicago White Sox offense is terrible. 266 WOBA, 111 or 112 ISO versus righties. They haven't been good versus Pablo Lopez. Lopez has some strikeout upside, 26% K rate. The only thing the White Sox have going for them against righties is the fact that they don't strike out a ton, 21.6%. But combined K rate, 23.5 at 9.3K. I'm okay with going there. We have a huge projection, 2.6x value, almost 24 points. I think he's one of those spots where you may just have to eat some chalk and go with him. I don't mind doing that whatsoever. I think he's in a great spot, and I will probably have some. Next, Kevin Gausman, 8.5K. Look, we're not going to see Gausman this cheap very long, I'm sure. I think he is starting to turn it around. I dug in a little bit because I did have some worry about him earlier in the season. It did look like his velocity was down. He hasn't been very good this year, but his velocity has came up a little bit. His spin rate is actually up. I think Gausman is going to be fine. I know he had the spring training injury, and I think he's just kind of working back into form from that. So I don't mind getting a little Gausman at some low ownership here. Big time K rate, 29.3%. We know he can be efficient. He can work deep into games. This isn't the easiest matchup, though. 197 WOBA for KC versus righties, ISO, and 325 WOBA versus righties. So KC is good versus righties. But Gausman has been very good versus KC. 0.095 average, 0.071 ISO, 27.7% K rate. I don't mind taking some shots on Gausman, especially if he's going to be a little bit lower owned. There is some upside in the strikeout department there. KC is a great offense. The weather's nice, 70 degrees, but at least the wind is blowing a little, I think it was right to left today, but it is, cross field. It is not blowing out, which definitely helps that ball move at that stadium. So I don't mind taking some Gausman. His velocity is close to what it was last year. It is still slightly down, but his spin rate is up. So he may just be trying to do something a little different with the ball. But guy's been really good for a couple of years, and he can be extremely efficient and work real deep into games. So I'm intrigued to take some. And he got up to 101 pitches last game, so it takes my worry of him being limited away now too. So definitely a little interested to go there. Stroman, I think he's priced way too high for his upside. 20% K rate, 23% combined K rate. I am just not really going to get there. Look, Oakland offense is terrible, and it is a great matchup, but he has one game a year that he puts up 30 plus or 40. And I just can't say that it's going to be now. Oakland offense is kind of pesky, have a lot of guys that can run or some power, and I just don't really want to get there. So he is my kind of more so of a higher owned fade so far. Logan Webb is a great pitcher. Don't mind taking some of him, but he also has strikeout upside concerns. 19.7% and 19% combined K rate. He's at 8,800. Our projection is decent. I think he is, one of those pitchers who is extremely good, just not great for fantasy. So he's another guy. If I have some, I'm fine with it, but I'm not trying to force him in. Grayson Rodriguez is showing up lately. He's been very good this year. He has a 2.6 ERA, striking out 10 per 9. He's been better away. The one thing, though, is this Angels offense is actually decent. 182 ISO versus righties, but they do strike out a lot. So there is some strikeout upside. He's going low owned. I don't mind if I have a little bit, but he is not somebody that I'm targeting either. Michael King, now, we got the big issue here with it being in Colorado, but 7K is way too cheap for this guy upside-wise. 30% K rate, 3.64 FIP over his last 20 starts. The guy has been very, very good. And it's not actually 20 starts. It's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 starts since he's only had 13 starts. But he's been extremely good, and there's huge K upside. Colorado strikes out at 28%. They are decent versus righties, and the game is in Colorado, so it is scary to click this name. But 7K for a guy with a 27% combined K rate versus an offense that's not that good and hasn't really been able to get rolling this year is pretty interesting. And going low ownership, he's going to stay low ownership too because it's in Colorado. So I'm a little intrigued by going Michael King. The other kind of pivot that I would be interested in, Logan Gilbert. This guy has been extremely good against good offenses. He's gone against Red Sox, Milwaukee, Toronto, Cincinnati, and owns a 2.33 ERA in that, has a K per 9 at 9.67, so there is some strikeout upside. I do have a little bit of concerns. Hard contact rate, 42% is really high. Allowing a lot of line drives, decent amount of barrel balls here. So there are some concerns here, but he has been very good versus Texas. 205 average and 93 plate attempts, but only a 20% K rate. So we know Gilbert's good. He can work deep into games. I'm interested in taking a little bit of him, but again, there's not like a plant my flag pitcher on this slate. However, there's 4 or 5 guys that I do like, and I will be mixing and matching those guys. Now, let's get over to FanDuel. Try and get over this quickly because we are running long. Pablo Lopez, highest owned. He is my favorite pitcher on the slate, as he probably should be most people's, and ownership shows that 33% owned. Stroman, same thing over here as on DraftKings. I think he's too expensive for his upside. It is a great matchup. There's a good chance of him getting a win bonus, getting a quality start bonus. So I do like him a little bit more on FanDuel, but I'm still not going out of my way to get him, and probably am going to be under the field, even with him at only 14% owned. Kevin Gausman, I definitely like him at 8,400 and going to have some. Michael King is a 9K on FanDuel. I'm still very intrigued on King. On DraftKings at 7K, I would probably have a ton of King. And Max Fried, super low owned on FanDuel. It's another spot where, like Stroman, he doesn't have the K upside, but win bonus, quality start bonus, much higher likelihood in this spot. So I don't mind taking some Fried at 1,400 less than Stroman, and I think he does have a little higher K upside than Stroman. Logan Webb, a little expensive over here. Definitely interested in Gilbert on the FanDuel side as well. Now let's get to stacks. Good old stack attack. I won't be surprised if it takes a little long today due to the fact that I forgot to restart my computer before filming this. While we're on it, Eric Fedde, high FIP of the day guy. So Minnesota looks all right. Again, I would say one thing about Fedde is I actually think he's a decent pitcher. So I'm not going to go out of my way to get Minnesota, but for what it's worth, he is the one up there. All right. So highest owned stacks of the day. We got the San Diego Padres once again. Let's go Pods. 1-1 yesterday. Let's win another. And look, they look decent today. You're in Coors. It is okay weather. Feltner isn't great. 4.21 FIP over the last 20. 4.4 over the last 5. I'm totally fine with going with him. Also, Houston popping up. I love the weather conditions for Wrigley today. Jordan Wicks, also pretty average. 4.11 FIP. 4.56 FIP over his last 5. I think Houston is in a really good spot to hit a couple of home runs. The wind is starting out around 15, 16 mile an hour, blowing out towards center. Going to gradually come down throughout the game, but very intrigued by that Houston and Cubs spot. I actually might be a little more intrigued with the Cubs than Houston, but I like this game in general. Now, let's get over to highest projected lineups. All right, highest projected lineups. We got Atlanta versus Trevor Rogers. Makes a lot of sense. Atlanta is a nice little offense and hitting park. The other thing, Travis Arnaud is just incredibly hot. Ozuna is incredibly hot. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go with that team, and they're not going high owned, so it makes sense to want to go there. Baltimore's popping up. Griffin Canning is off to a very rough start. 5.71 FIP over his last 5. 4.39 over his last 20. I do think Canning's a decent pitcher, but he hasn't figured it out, and this Baltimore offense is rolling, so absolutely willing to take some Baltimore stacks there. And Houston, San Diego, Atlanta, all popping up as well. Off to higher value stacks of the day. And we got Minnesota versus Eric Fedde. As I said, he has the highest or the worst last 20 FIP on the slate. So it is a spot you may want to target. His FIP over the last 5 is 7.11. He does have some strikeout upside, but this Minnesota offense can kind of get it done, and they also have a few guys that can steal some bags, have some power. A little bit intrigued by going there. I do have to show that this is the lowest game total of the day. Only a 7, but they are huge minus 280 favorites. So, you know, it is projected to be a little bit of a blowout there. Oakland's popping up against Stroman a little bit too. You know, they're okay. It's just okay. Stroman is a above average pitcher, but it's not like I would not stack against him, but I don't love the spot. Next, highest ceiling. And the highest ceiling for the day is the Atlanta Braves and Houston. KC is mixing in here a little bit. We talked about Gausman as that I do like him, but I also can't stop, you know, I got to mention the fact that he's been off to a pretty bad start for Kevin Gausman. So KC is absolutely at least worth considering to throw some stacks out there. They're going to be low owned, and Gausman's got roughed up, and he's let some guys on base, which he normally doesn't do. He's normally very good with walks, but he's been walking guys to start the year. So absolutely interested there as well. And lastly, let's look at the implied runs. Chicago Cubs and Houston have the tied for highest implied run total. Cubs, however, aren't popping up as a higher owned stack. So absolutely intrigued on that about them, and their bullpen hasn't been good. So Houston's bullpen, that is. So I really like the Cubs. I mentioned it when we were talking about Houston earlier. I do like the Cubs a little more than Houston, but I do like both stacks. San Diego is obviously very interesting also. Colorado's pitching has been very bad. San Diego's in Colorado. Atlanta, I mean, they're always a consideration. Cardinals, going to go super low owned versus Arizona, and Tommy Henry can absolutely get got, so a little interesting. And Seattle can actually hit righties pretty well, and Dane Dunning is allowing almost 45% hard contact and the highest average exit velocity of any starter on the slate. So having some Seattle makes some sense too, and that Texas bullpen has not been great. So there are kind of a lot of different ways to go here. And I think you got to also throw in this Colorado offense with, even though Michael King is a solid young pitcher, it's in Colorado. Weird things happen. Good pitchers get blown up all the time. They're going unowned. So don't mind having some of them as well. And that'll do it for us today. All in all, pretty interesting slate. 10 games, a lot of different ways we can go. Good luck. Let's make some money. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.